everybody. Welcome to UGA Sports Live. My name is Radi Nabulsi. I'm joined by Jim Donnan, the former Georgia Bulldogs head coach. And the number one reason everybody is tuned in on a Wednesday at noon to hear about the Georgia Bulldogs. And, of course, we have Dayne Young, who is over at the journalism school at the University of Georgia, basically ducking his real job and joining us, and we appreciate that. Coach, we had a press conference with Kirby Smart last night. That's the reason we waited till today to do the show. Kirby was in rare form, and I say that just about every week. He's been very animated this spring, and I think he is trying very hard to, I don't want to say set the stage, but to get across that this is not coach speak when he's talking about how his team looks, because that's what we asked. The first question was, Kirby, what can you tell us about the scrimmage? And this first scrimmage of the year. And he said, this feels like the first scrimmage of fall practice, because in fall practice, that's the first time you have all your 25 freshmen show up, any transfers you have. But now in spring, he has 25 freshmen and 6 transfers. And he basically says, it doesn't really say nobody knows what the hell they're doing, but they're all new people in new spots. And it's been very interesting for him he basically came out and talked about how young his team was. So let's roll that clip. And Coach, I want to get your thoughts on this, because this isn't just coach speak. He's trying to tell us this is a new team.
We have got more new people in new positions than in the 10 years I've been here. And every year that is probably ratcheted up a little bit, but it is to the point where you almost have to start like no one knows anything. Make no assumptions. Don't assume anything.
What do you think, Coach?
Yeah, I'm pretty much of that same feeling about the situation, is that every team's got its own identity regardless of where you are, where you coach. But in the case of Georgia, we've had so much experience and lost so few players to transfer and always had people coming up. And now we've had guys go out early and some guys leave and some people get hurt. So I think it's just hard to, knowing what the standard is, you set the standard and you want to meet that standard, but some of these guys aren't capable of doing that yet because they don't know what the standard is. So it's just, I hope everybody understands that. But the basic premise from me is he's being very succinct in his approach with the press and with the team. And the reality is we got some really good young pups, a lot of stallions running around the corral. They just got to get them in place. And when you have just a few of your veteran guys that know what to do, they can't go out there like Monroe Freeling and, others, Everett in the secondary. So that really puts a little damper on some things, because not only are you missing a first team guy, but you're now got a second team guy playing first team and now a third team guy playing second that probably hadn't played at all. So, and the other thing that we've gone over so many times on this show, and Kirby has too, we place a big premium on going ones against ones. So if you hadn't been to the dance and all of a sudden you're out there against a really good player who has been, it doesn't make any difference what your ability is. You're going to have a hard time, doing well early until you understand what it takes. Plus you have to get all that volume of offense and defense in your brain to learn what to do, because a confused player has a hard time. So it's, I think we can beat the dead horse on that, but I know that Kirby's not crying wolf or anything like that. He's just, and I'm sure a lot of teams around the country, with the exception of maybe Penn State and Texas, who have so many guys back, are saying the same thing. Ohio State, look at all the guys they lost. So we'll be fine. It's just a case of the finished product's going to take a little longer to get across the assembly line.
Roddy, one of the points that I made on the dog vent today, because Kirby has beat this drum so much in this spring practice of we are so young, we're younger than we've ever been, but yet we have more cohesion as a team because we have less turnover than most teams in the country do, if you look at that. And so to me, I looked at it and I said, Mike Bobo is calling the plays. Drew Bobo is snapping to the quarterback, and the quarterback is Gunnar Stockton. In terms of cohesion for those three spots on a team, Georgia has to be as high in the country in terms of experience, knowing how to communicate with each other, familiarity with each other, just because of how well they all know each other. Now, one thing I've learned from you, Coach, talent is always going to beat experience every single time. Top-end talent wins in this game. So that doesn't necessarily mean you'll win a national championship, but the way I phrased it on the dog vent, maybe you sidestep some of the potholes that derail some teams because you have that cohesion at those key spots.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point because it all starts down the middle, but you also got to have, playmakers. And the thing about football, offense has got to do it. A defensive player can fall down, but they don't throw the ball on that side, or a defender misses his assignment, but they run the other way. But an offensive player, one person messes up, usually the defense takes care of it. So it's just, I've seen this. I mean, I'm 80 years old. I've seen it since the Depression when I was born. I mean, it's just hard to put a team together this quickly in 9 or 10 practices. I mean, come on. It's just, it takes a real long time to get that feeling of, you expect to win, you expect to do well, all that. And you're just building your team, and it's a process. I guess that's a good word for it. It really is a process of putting all the bricks together and mortar and getting your foundation, and then finished product comes out against Marshall, hopefully. But I will say this, we have created a monster here. I mean, Barry said that in Oklahoma there back when they were rolling. We created a monster, and you got to keep feeding it every year. So there is a tremendous expectation here. There's tremendous dedication by the fans and support system, and they expect that. I mean, and Kirby knows that, and he's busting his butt this long as everybody else is. But I feel like that maybe that might give us a little edge, just the fact that, the players understand that they're not meeting what he wants right now. They got to keep working. They got to be hungry. They know that they don't have it made, and they got to keep rolling. So I hope it's a sign of, that we're going to be okay, but you never know. I mean, the other team's got some of the same issues.
Yeah, I like your an analogy of building it brick by brick. People use that occasionally, and they don't.
I don't want to beat Tennessee now.
I was about to say. I say some people use over too much. The Zayden Butch
Jones there. I mean,
but I'm going to use it in reference to when the media comes in and the fans come in. We're talking about how's the. We're trying to pick tile for the shower and what's the faucet's going to look like. Kirby Smart still laying the foundation and putting up. He's still framing the house. So we're coming in asking him who scored a touchdown in the scrimmage, who blocked the kick, who did what. And he's like, look, we're still knocking down 2x4s and putting them lined up. We've got to rebuild this thing from the base up. This isn't a remodel. This is a rebuild. And I know everyone's thinking about that 2021, 2022 championship teams. All those guys are gone. Micah Morris is the last guy from that group. Everybody here is new, and he says when he mentions he's younger than he's ever been in his 10 years here, position by position, he's giving us context. He's not trying to downplay it. He's not trying to sandbag. He's not trying to say, woe is me. Some people say, he's trying to kick his guys in the ass. Maybe, but I think it's just an honest assessment, because last week when he was talking about Gunnar Stockton, he said, I wish I had Gunnar Stocktons at every position. And I'm like, you wish you had a guy that played a game and a half, but it wasn't that. It was he knows what to do. And that's as he's trying to build this team and create that identity like you're talking about, Coach. When you got guys that aren't sure where to go, like you just mentioned, I think it's I guess you could see some frustration in Kirby. You can see it because he wants to be at the end, but it is slow going,
Yeah, and I think if you just look back at Kirby's MO over the last 20 years and the success rate he's had at Alabama and here at Georgia, then he knows what needs to be a part of being successful, and he knows how to do it. And he's been involved in this framework where he had to rebuild, maybe not quite as much. So he has a good blueprint for what he needs to do. And you look back on your teams and you assess how you're going to practice, what you need to do, this area and all that. And you look back at your history and you say, hey, in this year we had this situation. This is what we did. So he's got a real good library of things to draw from about how to prepare a team and go through the obstacles that he faces. Just like you were mentioning about the experience with Gunner, what he's alluding to is that Gunner's been around and he knows what I want and he knows what Bobo wants and all that. But and that's good when you have a quarterback that understands that situation. And I like when we first came here and they were doing all that stuff and everything, I said to Kirby, because he was trying to get the Alabama way here at Georgia when they were first. And I said, Kirby, I said, I promise you there's some coaches out there that don't know what the hell's going on, much less the players, because you're trying to get them going too, but they haven't been around this. I mean, Schumann has and Tucker has, but not many of them. So how many of them can tell you verbatim what they, what your defense is and all that? And he said he understood that, but he wanted to get it quicker, So I think it's just something that we've spent enough time on today that everybody realizes that.
Yeah, we got other stuff to talk about.
But I really believe that this hunger and the inability to play when we really needed it last year is going to be a good driving force for this team and good standard to meet.
You mentioned his coaches. They are not immune from catching strays on the microphone. He yells at his coaches as much as he does his players. But I think when Dayne, you're talking about that continuity, this is the first time he doesn't have a bunch of new coaches. I think we glossed over the fact that he replaced 4 last year at very key points on the staff and getting those guys, going into this year, rebuilding it. Now those guys are going through spring knowing how Kirby Smart wants to run the spring. And this is not a shot. I mean, I think the world of T-Rob. I think Terrell Robinson is one of the best coaches out there. Followed his career. He's been huge. He's got to rebuild his safety room. And I think it was interesting that you go from having Malachi Starks and Dan Jackson. Kirby mentioned, those guys had like 1,000 snaps between them, and now they're gone. And last week we spoke to KJ Bolden. KJ Bolden is now the elder statesman. He was a freshman last year, but now he is the elder statesman in a room. This is only his second spring. And they brought in a bunch of new guys. And they got to find somebody to play opposite him, but you got to rebuild that secondary group almost from the ground up with the amount that you lost. So he brought in some new guys. Let's hear what Kirby had to say about that.
And specifically, he was asked about the transfers from Miami and UAB and how they're acclimating.
Flashes. But flashes don't win games. Consistency does. And, we're looking for some more consistency out of those positions. I mean, y'all tell me how many snaps we lost. I don't know, 2,000. I mean, we probably took 1,000 snaps last year on defense. And if we took 1,000 snaps, Malachi and Dan took 1,000 each. That's 2,000. So I know KJ played a good bit, but there's a lot of snaps missing out there. And these guys are coming into a defensive system that requires heavy communication. And we're not going to let the offense dictate to us. So we have a lot of things we do to create an advantage when an offense does something. And you got to be able to communicate to do that.
You know what I liked about that coach is that he dives into the core philosophy of a Georgia defense. We will not let an offense dictate to us.
Yeah, I mean, I think people that listen to the show understand that we do have an inordinate amount of checks, maybe more than most teams. But, now that the systems around the country with Lanning out there at Oregon and other coaches, but it goes back to when the spread first started in no huddle, you only had your defense couldn't get lined up and they couldn't do a lot of stuff. So you have 1 or 2 checks. Now you see it so much that you can run your whole defense. I know when Kirby was first going against the spread, he was, I talked to him occasionally. And he said, look, we practice so much that we never play because people no huddle. And he said, we got to figure some way out where we can get that in there quicker and or eliminate that and do more of what we can get fast. And now his whole approach to practice, even though when we're not going hurry up on offenses, it gets the scout team to do that more and all, just so the defense can not only get lined up, but communicate some things to help you take advantage of what they're doing. Because if the offense knows that your check is this, they're going to whip you a lot. I mean, you're just trying to get lined up. But if you can get up and get lined up and still do some of your stuff to confuse them, then that's what you want to be able to do. And I think in the most part, that's what he's saying, that we like to communicate and go what this match coverage that they run, which matches the routes, but based on releases and things like that. That's really part of our success is we are able to do that and confuse some of the offenses that we play against.
I'm trying to think about the logistics of having Adrian Maddox, Jaden Harris, Zion Branch, all these new guys show up and pop them in there and go, hey, not only know the checks, but communicate them, know where to be, facing off against Dillon Bell, Oscar Delp, guys that have been in the system for some time. Like you're saying, Coach, if you could be ones versus ones, but if the guy across from you's been here a lot longer, knows what he's doing, good luck. And so you can see Kirby saying we've got to communicate it. And again,
and I think conversely, and you can keep going, some of these new receivers, they may not know how to line up to give you the offense that, one thing they called it at USC might be different here for Branch or for Thomas from A&M. And they got the same situation, learning not so much the route progression. Most routes are the same and everything. And you might call it different, but where to line up, it's called a lot of different ways. I mean, back in the old days, we just try to make it easier by anything involved with trips started with a T, like tray, trio, triangle, whatever it might be. And then anything that begins with 2x2 started with a D, like double, duo, divide. And then that let them know that the D's are doubles and the T's are triples. And that T helps you a little bit. So
the nomenclature.
ABTs.
We got to speak to some new guys last night, talking about in the defensive backfield. One of them was Kyron Jones. And I want you to play Kyron Jones' clip because that's a kid we have not talked a whole lot about. And I mean, speaking of Janelle Aguero was great. He talked about breaking his hand last year and not being able to play. But Kyron was very interesting. Let's play that.
Yeah, if people are watching visually, Roddy, I want them to look at this guy too because he is built.
Coming in, I mean, I was a running back in high school, so I wouldn't. You couldn't tell me how to backpedal when I came in here, So all that was kind of new. So just learning, under really the best, I would say the best, defensive coaches, the game has seen, Kirby Smart, Will Muschamp. So I'll be honest with you, it was tough, as a freshman, just trying to figure out, first of all, how to play DB, and secondly, our system, it was just a lot.
That's it. He's built. He does not look like your normal defensive back.
He looks like a running back.
He does. I actually asked him last time, like, did you ever talk to the coaches about playing running back like Dillon Bell did? He's like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, they could use you, man. But Kyron, I mean, think about it, learning from the floor up. And I know people say, well, why would you take a guy like that? It's because he's so athletic. You see what he's built like. Yeah, he didn't know how to backpedal, but they can teach that. And I always use the example of Eric Stokes, my guy from East Side, who didn't know how to be a DB. But if you're coachable and you have the skill set, like you guys say, talent will win out over experience. He's not unlearning any bad habits. You don't have to unrecruit him, and he goes in with humility and you teach him the core fundamentals of what he's going to do. He's that framework that you build on. So, Coach, I think Kyron Jones has a pretty bright future.
Definitely can run. I promise you that. That's one of the first things Muschamp was telling me about the guy when they were talking about him. And even Mac Brown, had a chance to talk about, some of those North Carolina kids once in a while, I'd ask him about, because I didn't really know a lot about the recruits, and he was high on the fact that this kid could really run.
Yeah, Kyron Jones was talking about how we asked him, do you run against anybody on the team? And he goes, Chris Peel, another North Carolina kid, says we competed against each other for years and years and years, and when we would be running here, try to go up against each other. Which is also interesting that there's also another kind of running rivalry that was mentioned last night. We spoke to Zachariah Branch, and he's like, yeah, I knew Nate Frazier for years out in California. It's like, and I remember me and him being like 9 and 10-year-olds running in Arizona, like with one of those travel track teams. I'm like, these guys have been speeding against each other for a long time. So really
pretty cool. That's for sure.
Yeah.
The thing about, you talk about a guy like Kyron Jones, you forget about the fact that, he hasn't played here for a couple of years. So everybody just kind of thinks he's not any good. And I don't say everybody, but the tendency is if you don't come in here and play like Malachi Starks or Walker and play early, then they have a tendency to think, well, maybe not going to be able to do it. But we've seen over and over guys that hang in there and know what to do. And if you look at guys like Chambliss and Robert
Beal
and all those guys, they know, and the competition they face daily helps them improve their skill set. So here's a guy that had good speed, good size, but maybe not the ability to be a DB, but it's started to get better, and he got hurt a little bit, I think, but he definitely has the skill set to be a good DB.
Well, and you think about his skill set that he came into Georgia with, and all the things that he said he didn't know how to backpedal. But if he's one that transfers within the first 2 years and goes somewhere else, it restarts everything that he's been learning, either just getting something different, from a different coach. But there are things that by him being patient at Georgia, I think he has a chance to play NFL ball as a defensive back, and maybe not as much if he would have transferred.
Right. And if he transferred, he'd probably end up playing on offense.
That was Kirby actually talked about some of the transfers, and I know it sounds like just coach speak when he says I'm looking for guys with fire and passion, but he is. And he mentioned guys that transfer 2, 3, 4 times. He's like, they're always looking for an easier way. And he says, I can't think of anybody who's done that, who's going to be a star, down the road. And I started thinking about it, going through the guys that you like, hey, this is his 3rd school in 4 years, or this is 2nd school in 2 years. There aren't a lot of double and triple transfers. Again, it's early in the whole transfer era, but you're not seeing a lot of guys. This is his 4th school, and now he's up for the Heisman. It's just, there's not a lot of that, Coach. I think you're right about sticking it out.
Do we want to play that? Because Kirby touches on that and just the relationship that how in the NIL era do relationships still matter, or is it about top dollar?
I really believe there still does matter a relationship. And if relationship doesn't matter, then I'm probably not going to have a kid that wants to play hard for Georgia, right? So relationship matters, work ethic matters. Do you want to be great? Do you have fire, passion, and energy? I'll pay for that. I'll pay a premium for fire, passion, and energy, because in the market we're in, there's a lack of that. Kids are going to struggle the next 10 years when they look back and somebody says, I'm going to go back, introspect, I'm going to look at this and say, what happened to the kids that went to 2 and 3 and 4 places? I will assure you, we will not be happy with where those kids that jump for greener grass went to. And I think the portal's a good thing for a lot of kids that are 3rd, 4th, 5th year, but it also gives you a way out that I don't think is good for kids right now.
He's right, Coach.
I mean, I agree. Too easy to quit, too easy to leave. And these vultures that are turning into money makers for some of these guys that aren't that great. By that, I mean some of these agents who are just shopping these kids around and promising them things that, you can't blame the kids for listening to them. I mean, there's a chance for you to make some big money. But it's very difficult. It used to be you couldn't talk to them. I mean, just the ethics of being a coach. You didn't talk to a player at another school and ask him, look, you're not getting to play. Can you come here and we can help you and all that. You never did that.
No coaches ever did that in your era, right? No one ever talked to anybody.
I mean, we did some bad things, but we didn't do that. I mean, I promise you that. And there was not a lot. I mean, maybe some people did that, but not anybody that I knew of. And if it happened in our league, people would self-report it and talk about it. We had good communication among the coaches, but now it's a new ball game, and it's who can get the most in the buffet, who can get it all. And I know I heard Kirby saying that they were setting up some kind of Zoom meeting for some of these agents to see some of these players where you can actually see who's going to be available in this next portal. And that's ridiculous because the portal hasn't even opened yet, and I just think they need to curtail. I mean, they're doing some good things on this revenue sharing, but they need to rein in these agents, man. It's terrible.
Yeah, the idea that you have an agent reach out to you, say, "Hey, jump on this Zoom call, and we're going to show you the 20 kids that we represent from 12 different schools. They're not in the portal yet, but they will be. Here's their highlights and stuff like that. And let the bidding begin at whatever." Kirby gets this invitation, and he's like, "Well, what the hell if some of my kids are on it?" So. He's right. The relationships do matter. This is the second or third week in a row he says, I'm looking for fire. I'm looking for guys who want to play ball. I feel like he's done with the whole – because the question that preceded that was, Kirby, have you ever had a kid come in and say, here's my number from school X. Can you match it or beat it? And he said, I'm sure the kids would like to do that because it would be very easy. But if I ever have a kid coming in and that's his number one thing, that's not a kid I'm going to bring in. I want kids who want to play the game. And it sounds noble, but a lot of us go, don't do that. Get the star. I don't care what he wants. Throw money in. We do the same thing with coaching. There are a lot of teams around the country that say, whatever Kirby needs to come be my coach, throw the bank at him, throw the gold bullion at him, back up the Brinks truck, flood him with money. But that's not who Kirby Smart is. That's not who he's looking for. But he can still win with very good talent. He's spending money. Georgia is spending money, but he's not going to do it for the kid that comes in, and that's his number one priority. He's going to pay top. You got to pay the market, but you don't do it by going shopping on a Zoom with a bunch of agents, and you don't do it with the kid who's coming out comes with his hand out first, because that is a kid who's not going to take coaching. He's not going to buy into the culture, and he'll be gone next year.
Well, here's what's going to happen. The portal is going to open up again after the spring, and we're going to lose some guys, not necessarily because they're unhappy here, but because they want to play, and you can't promise them playing time, particularly if they don't deserve it. So, and then you're going to have to replace them some way through the portal too. So hopefully we can get that portal situation where it's only once a year, and that would really help what he's talking about. But and I know the fans – The typical, I've got so many friends that just say this NIL, they just throw up their hands. I can't handle it. You better handle it. Because if you didn't know how to use a smartphone and you're using a flip phone, you probably couldn't get in a ball game now because you can't use your tickets. But I mean,
you got to
you got to understand all that. And the first time I did it, I said to myself, yes, sir, I was at least able to get in, It's just a situation where I make a little bit light of it, but the ability to adjust, and what we're seeing now too, I think I'll add this, which is a little thing you don't hear on many shows, but so many of these NIL people now, when they first started out, you were looking at working through the school and trying to get something set up with through these collectives, and then the collectives would assign things to these kids. But now these people are going straight to the kids and their agent.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't worry about UGA or the system or anything. They just go straight to, and then of course it has to be approved by UGA after it gets through there, or Tennessee or whoever it is. But you're seeing a lot less of trying to go through the school and just going like, Dayne is my agent. Hey, talk to Dayne and he'll set it up for you. That's just the way it is. He isn't my agent, but I'm just saying if I'm a player, that's the way it is. But I wish he was my agent because he's good at promoting people. I need a lot of promotion.
Kirby mentioned that on April 7th, maybe the House settlement comes through and that there's a cap on this. Because he's asked about the whole, I asked him twice and I just stopped asking. I said, are you going to have to get down to 105? And he kept saying, we don't know. He says, I'd love to be able to answer your question, Roddy, but I can't because we just don't know. And he even pointed out last night, the 105 says by the first game. So they may go higher than 105 through, fall camp and then cut back to get to 105. There's a lot of questions that remain unanswered. And the number one thing that pops up when people talk about NIL, Coach, and I know people kind of roll their eyes and they don't like that it exists, or they don't like the way it's being executed, I guess. They're not against it in principle, but they're against the execution. And I was talking to a young guy who's getting into the business. He's getting into recruiting, working for staffs. And I said, look, you're going to look back on this as the wild, wild west times. But a lot of people don't like it. But when James Ellis, the recruiting director at Georgia, wakes up in the morning, he's got to go find kids. He's got to deal with NIL. Kirby Smart has to deal with NIL. They have to deal with the market the way it is now. You can't just throw your hands up and say, I'm done with it. And I know a lot of people say, well, it doesn't matter because another school can come in and just throw a bunch of money at them and your relationship goes out the window. Well, not if you've got money to throw too. Basically, it's going to come down to where, let's say you're a 5-star wide receiver. You're looking at Ohio State, LSU, Georgia, and Tennessee. They're all offering you a lot of money. Relationships matter. The program matters. The environment matters. It's not every kid is going to the highest bidder. And Georgia's got the pockets to bid high, and they are. So we're going to actually talk about some of those guys that Georgia bid high on that came in the transfer portal. There's a couple of them in the wide receivers room that we're going to talk about and get Dillon Bell's take on it here in a second. But first, I want to mention
this right now. I don't necessarily think, and I agree with everything you said, but at the end, I don't necessarily think that just because we got a guy in the transfer portal that we outbid somebody.
Oh, yeah, true.
I think we got him because of that, but also because of the things that you alluded to, being in a winning program, having a chance to play in a system that gets you ready for the NFL, playing for a coach that, word of mouth is that he's going to treat you right. So it goes kind of counterbalance there. But so we don't necessarily lose guys because of lack of money, and we don't get them because of paying more. But it all adds up. You better have enough resources. And I think if you just look at our ratings on the recruiting, we're obviously doing something right because we continually finish in the top 3 or 4 every year. So between the balance of the coaching, the money, the graduation, everything, then that we're doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to pay market rates. You got to be close. You may not be number one, but KJ Bolden, we talked about him. He'd have made a lot more money going to FSU, but he came to Georgia for the relationship. Doesn't mean he didn't get paid a lot, but he didn't get paid nearly as much as he would have at FSU. So that happens. And Dillon Bell.
That'd be one of the great decisions ever made based on their team last year.
Exactly. Very true. Boy, he's like, woo, voted that one. Speaking of great decisions, and when it comes to your money, let's talk about our friends over at Athens Ford because they have a fantastic lineup of cars over there. 844 new cars for sale over there. So and again, remember when during COVID we were talking about, hey, they're up to 125 cars. They're up to 200 cars. Now they're back to their normal thing about having 844 of them. And that's new. Of course, they have a lot of used vehicles as well. And everything you buy at Athens Ford will have a lifetime powertrain warranty on it. The sales experience will knock your socks off. If you ever need any repairs, and again, you can get your Toyota repaired there, your Chrysler, whatever. They do repairs on all different vehicles. If you're ever in the repair shop over there, that will impress the hell out of you. You'll get your coffee and your snacks and your incredibly fast Wi-Fi and clean comfort. Hell, I mean, we've done our show from out there. You know, this is a data-heavy show, and it's nicer. Their waiting room for repairs is nicer than my office. So, not that saying a whole lot, but shout out to the folks at Athens Ford who make every experience you have out there, whether it be a new purchase, you can go over there and sell your car. You can sell them your car. Or a repair. They make it fantastic. So we appreciate them and we appreciate the service they do. Also, if you're looking to kind of change up your lifestyle and you want to make good decisions, especially when it comes to something financial, check out our friends at myperfectfranchise.net. Now, you're not going to be able to go out and open just any franchise. You know, he's like, hey, I want to open a Chick-fil-A franchise. That's maybe a little trickier, but if you can't get one of those, there's 3,000 other ones you can get. And I'm sure Andy Ledecky probably knows the folks at Chick-fil-A. So the point being, if you want to get out of the rat race, you want to get out of the drudgery of a 9-to-5, if you want to work for yourself and not for somebody else, reach out to Andy Ledecky and he will get you squared away with there are more options than you could shake a stick at. So check out myperfectfranchise.net, email him, text him, call him. Whatever you want to do, it's free. It doesn't cost you anything. So you can talk to him as much as you like, and it'll never cost you a dime. So check him out. We're talking about the transfer portal, and Georgia's going to lose some guys, but they also bring some guys in. We started off the show talking about the 3 new guys they have at safety that can work out, that will help bring in the 2,000 snaps that Georgia lost. Jaden Harris has a lot of experience. Adrian Maddox has experience. Zion Branch, although beat up, has experience. We're seeing Guerrero working back there. We're seeing Kyron Jones, guys who have already been on the team. They've got we talk about people that Georgia loses. We don't talk much about people Georgia brings in. They brought in a couple wide receivers. Now, remember, this is like year 3 of bringing in wide receivers. Start out with Dominic Blaylock. Dom Lovett and Ra Thomas, and then Colby Young. Now you've got Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch. The guy that's been here seeing all this has been Dillon Bell. And Dillon Bell was kind of asked about that wide receiver room.
I'd say it's a lot of great guys on the team. I feel like we are the best receiver room in the country. You look at the depth chart, you look at all the guys we have, I feel like anybody can roll in, and we're great. I'll say that.
Bold words, Coach.
Well, I mean, that's good confidence. I've always had a lot of confidence in Bell. I mean, you look back to when he was a freshman, the way he played against Florida, he caught that ball. But he's really, had a couple issues last year with drops, but very talented guy, can play in the backfield. He's going to be a pro player.
I like the confidence. Current Georgia players are not going to know who's in the wide receiver rooms at other places and study those things. So I don't know that I necessarily agree, because I think any wide receiver room with Jeremiah Smith is probably the best in the country. But that said, Georgia has a lot of guys in there, and there's a lot of potential talent. But I think we were saying the same thing last year. And if for whatever reason, off the field or on the field, if these guys aren't playing, then it doesn't look as great. But this room has potential, and I think that's where it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, most of the Georgia fans, based on the way we dropped the ball last year, would think that was April Fool's. That he was just busting them. But it's good to have that kind of confidence. And I think every team has its own new players and new characters. And, they've worked really hard on a lot of different issues. We talked about the vision. We talked about working on the peripheral vision, all the stuff they've worked on. I'm sure it'll work out.
Dillon Bell is not going to go out. I mean, you want your guy to have confidence in his room, his group. But Dillon Bell's not going to go out there and just say it for the hell of it. Feel like that he needs to. But he looks around and he's like, okay, I'm good at what I do. I had a few drops last year, but I'm still a well-respected wide receiver. I'm dangerous. He knows he's dangerous. He knows he can make big plays. Then you got London Humphreys, who's made some big catches last year. You got Colby Young is back. Hopefully he'll be cleared and everything and be able to play. This was a guy that Georgia really wanted to lean on last year. You saw him coming into his own, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's suspended. You bring in Noah Thomas, who's gigantic. You got C.J. Wiley over there. In the slot, you've got I'm not even going to talk about Cash Jones. I know there's one of y'all's favorite guys as a receiver, but you got Zachariah Branch, a freshman All-American, who's also a great returner. Talon Taylor, Sokovie White, Nitro Tuggle. I'm not trying to say, they got the best wide receiver, but like you said, the potential there is through the roof. You've got X's, you've got Z's, you've got slot guys. You got size, you got speed, you got production. If they can just catch the damn thing.
Well, and yet, what does Kirby say the emphasis on offense has been? Establishing the run, because that's what was struggling last year.
Yeah. Hey, Coach, how much does the establishing run help out your wide receivers?
Yeah, it helps in a lot of different ways. I mean, just from the standpoint, if people are leery of stopping the run, they're going to have to do things in the box there to change their coverage and to open up more passing lanes, and also just gives you a lot of confidence that you can take a shot. If all of a sudden it's 2nd and 4 and you're not a great running team, it's hard to maybe throw a deep ball and go for it all, knowing that 3rd and 4 you might not make it based on your productivity. So all of that looks into your philosophy of how you call a game. But some of my easiest moments in coaching were, and I didn't have that many, but was knowing that you had some waste downs. I mean, you knew that no matter what they did, if we didn't make it, we were going to be able to make it. So, hey, let's go. We're going to run fake 42 wedge, JoJo right, the X post, or we're going to try something. We're going to go over the top, or we're going to run something funky that maybe the defense isn't ready for. But if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? So, and every good coach has these plays that are not necessarily waste downs, but they're called shots that if you don't throw the ball deep 3 or 4 times every quarter, the other team is not going to be near as leery, worried about it. They're not going to, think that, hey, well, they might do this. They might. And that's what I like. The fact that he thinks I might do it, then even if I don't, it's worth it.
Nothing like being a defensive coordinator knowing that the offense is at 2nd and 2 on your 48. Shit, this ain't going to be good. Speaking of offense and running the ball, we got to speak to Micah Morris last night. Micah's been around a long time. He talked about, he learned from Jamari Sawyer and Broderick Jones, and he's been here a minute.
Like looking back at my the picture in our locker of us when we first got up here, half the time I don't even know who that guy is. But just maturing, just think about all the great times that I've had here, just all the good memories, the locker rooms, the camaraderie, the jokes, the friendships, the bonds that I've built here, and then just knowing now I'm in the older role. I'm what Jamari was to me for somebody else now, just being able to accept that role and just trying to bring up the younger guys and just lead them in the right way.
Man, just look at that guy. He looks like one of those weightlifter competition extraordinaires that you used to see at ESPN2 on Sunday afternoons at 3:00. I mean, that guy's built differently, Coach.
Yeah, and it's just nice to see that glow in his eyes and that confidence, and reminds you of so many of the guys here that have been the kind of difference makers that we've had on and off the field. I mean, he's got good glow there, and it hasn't worked out as good for him maybe as we thought, as far as all of a sudden Fairchild comes on and plays pretty good last year, going to get drafted, and he's always having to be the extra guy, but man, he's got some power, and if he can just get his conditioning down where he can play down after down, this guy can come off. And we had this old coach, he said, you got to root, hog, or die. If you don't root him out and hog him, you're going to die. And this guy could root, hog, or die.
I asked him, said, look, every time we talk to offensive linemen or people on the team, and they mention Micah Morris, the next words out of their mouth are how strong he is. With Jerry Wilson, it was always like he's the fastest offensive lineman ever. He's incredibly fast. Andrew Thomas, it was like he's got perfect form. That's this guy knows what he's doing. Or this guy, if you see Dylan Fairchild pulling, you better buckle your chin strap because he's coming with bad intentions. Every time we talk about Micah Morris, we talk about how strong he is, and I'm like, can you give us some weight room numbers? And he knows he's not allowed to do that. Kirby doesn't like giving stuff out like that. But he did say, oh, yeah, well, on the incline bench, I'm doing 185. I'm in the Platinum Club. I'm the only one in it. So, of course, that was the title of the video we put up. We're like, I'm in the Platinum Club. And I knew some people probably take it the wrong way. But incline bench and 185 and the numbers he puts up, that dude he's a beast. So I'm excited about him.
Well, that's on the strength side. When you get to the mental side of the game, I was impressed with something that Peyton Woodring had said and coached, that it has to do with his work with a sports psychologist.
Did a lot of work with the sports psychologist, kind of like becoming more confident within myself and my ability to do it. Because I know whenever I go out there, I can always make it, but mindset was kind of getting in the way a little bit. But after that, I feel like I really worked on it, and I feel like it's helped improve me overall.
I think that's so healthy for a kicker to be involved in, because he knows how to kick a ball. He can kick anywhere in the world. He'd be a great kicker. But you miss one kick in college, and the avalanche of things that can come at you if you're not ready for it. That's really healthy for Peyton Woodring to have a grasp of that.
Well, that's a real paradox looking at Micah Morris and then looking at, you're talking about.
That was rude, Dave. That was rude.
Size, but he looks like a kicker, that's for sure. But I'm a great believer in sports psychologists. I know back when we first started using them when I was coaching at Missouri, and as much as he helped me with my team and my players, he also helped me because I had a young aspiring son that wanted to be an athlete, and he talked about what your expectancy levels are with your kid and what you want. And I was over coaching the heck out of my son. I was really doing way too much providing, because he was around the system. I was providing him with so many things that a lot of other kids didn't have. And there's an inordinate amount of pressure on him. And when I cut back on that and just let him understand that, hey, it's okay. You don't have to do this today. It's okay. We're going to do this. And after the games, not going through every play and talking about what you should have done and all that. Just let him be a kid, but also utilize the fact that I was a coach. But that sports psychologist made the difference in my relationship with me and my son, to the point that he became a lot better player because of my way I treated him and the way what I did with him. And I think everybody needs to get self-assessment about how you can do a better job or what it takes and all. But that's why these guys work with golfers and tennis players, and it's all in psyche. I know we've got one of the best. He comes over here. I talk to him all the time about things and that he's thinking about, and he's got a little competition because his partner works with Clemson. So it's kind of he enjoys that relationship when we kick their ass too. But the guy does a great job, and the kids react to him and relate to him, and that's what's good.
Well, Dane, you bring up a good point, having a kicker work with him, because it is – every kicker that we've ever had, when we ask them – we can't ask them about the mechanics. Hey, why didn't you make more kicks? Or what do you need to do to get better? Or why'd you miss it? They'll always say something. They say, look, this game is so mental. We can all make the kicks. But a lot of it, the real battle is between the ears. And I think that happened. You see it happen with Georgia's wide receivers last year. All of a sudden, one guy's dropping it, and another guy drops it. And sometimes a clinician like that can come in and go, "Hey, let's get together. Let's talk about this, and let's get past it." And I could be the tough guy and go, "Therapy's stupid," but I believe in therapy because in certain situations, and a sports psychologist, I think it's awesome. So, and look how well he did. He didn't kick. He had a few misses. Kid's been money since. So
yeah, he has NFL future potential all over him. But the thing is, with a kicker, you're always 2 missed kicks away from them moving on to the next one at the professional level.
It's there. The last guy I want to touch on, we'll in the show after this. want to mention we got to speak to Terrell Foster. Now, I remember it was like a year or two ago when we did our practice notes, kind of some insider notes. We had somebody who went to practice and said, here's what I saw. And he said, he gave me a number, said this guy was working with the inside linebackers. He was running with the first team. I'm like, wait, who? Hang on, that can't be right. He goes, yeah, this is the number. I'm like, nah, dude, that's a walk-on. You've got a bunch of All-Americans over there play at inside linebacker. What the hell is this walk-on doing getting reps with the first team? And come to find out, yeah, it was Terrell Foster. This is a guy he could go play anywhere. He could be on scholarship anywhere. He's a walk-on inside linebacker at Georgia, but he plays. And we asked him last night, why didn't you transfer?
It's Georgia, you come to Georgia to be a good player, and I mean that's where I want to be. There's a standard right here, and if you play to that standard, you're NFL ready. You'll be set.
He also said that the last time that media had talked to him, they asked the same question, and he gave the same answer. But the fact that he's still around to do that, to me, Coach, is him saying, I've seen what people can do at Georgia. I've seen what Dan Jackson just did, kind of coming up the same way, and I think I can do that.
Well, he's definitely a player. I mean, anybody in the country like to have him on their team. I mean, he's a good special teams guy. He just look at that smile. I mean, the guy's proud of the fact he's on the team. And, with NIL and other things available now, who cares who's on scholarship?
Well, and so when the NFL draft time comes around, even if it's a guy like Foster who hasn't played a whole ton, when NFL scouts and coaches come talk to Kirby Smart, a guy like him that's been loyal to Georgia and kind of played his role, I mean, how often does that kind of come in a side conversation of, hey, I know you're here to look at this, but like if you're looking for someone late rounds or even to bring into a camp, you should check this guy out.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of the process. That's why all the scouts just come around here so much, because they know there's some guys here that are maybe hidden gems that hadn't had the chance to get on the field as much. And that's why you see so many of our guys flourish. Look at the guy that's playing for the Dolphins now, the linebacker that played with Quay Walker and
Tyndall.
Yeah. I mean, Channing Tyndall didn't play super amount of snaps, but he got in because of his all around ability on special teams. He's a special teams phenom in the NFL. I mean, he's among the better players in the country, in the whole NFL on that. So I can see Foster doing the same thing.
Well, and Roddy, I've heard in draft process before, some prognosticators saying this player doesn't have a lot of tape to look at. Well, at Georgia, scouts can go look at the practice tape. Foster will have the practice tape ready for him, and at Georgia, that may be as valuable as the game tape in some cases.
You don't have any idea. That's why you listen to the show. These guys come in here, and certainly they look at the game tape, but they look at these practice tapes an inordinate amount of time, because how can you – let's say you go to evaluate some guy that plays for X team, and he plays against maybe 3 or 4 good players all year in all the series. At Georgia, they're going to get somebody every day. At Alabama, they're going to get somebody every day, one-on-one, pass rush, 7-on-7, all that. And with the computerized stuff, you can give them every snap that this guy's played and every drill and every practice, just him. And they look at that over and over. That's why so many of our offensive linemen have gotten higher draft pick, because they had to block Walker and Carter and all these guys and Smith. And you see them do that. You don't see a lot of the college guys doing that because they don't have the tape.
No, that's absolutely true. I like that when we found out that Dillon Bell was recruiting Zachariah Branch to come to Georgia, he told him, look, which I thought was very noble and very self-sacrificial, if you will, Dillon Bell. Dillon Bell's bringing on a guy who will take some of his passes. But he said, look, I want to win. But the reason you need to come to Georgia is we run a pro-style offense, and you're going to go up against the best defense day in and day out. I know it. I do it every day. It's hard. But if you want to make it to the NFL, that's what you need to do is come get in this system, get developed, and go up against this defense. He didn't sell them on playing games or playing for championships. He sold them on practice. So
you think the rude awakening was for Zachariah Branch going against those USC DBs and having country club atmosphere and then coming out here the first day and got Kirby? I mean, that had to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde there.
I wonder if Dante pulled him aside and said, "Hey, it's a little different than what we were doing."
It's different for Dante that first day too.
Exactly.
Happened to be here when he got here, right he was here during the preparation for our bowl game against Florida State, and his head was swimming. That's for sure.
There was a moment I've heard about where Zachariah took his helmet off in practice. You don't do that. No helmets off. But again, the only reason I bring that up is when you're talking about Terrell Foster. That's a guy who says, "Look, if I want." This is my thing about guys that transfer, and I have nothing against them. If you think that you will get more playing time somewhere else, you probably will. But if you can't beat out the guys at Georgia to get more playing time, what makes you think you're going to beat out the 30, let's say 64 starting cornerbacks in the NFL? You're going to beat out the 32 quarterbacks or the starters in the NFL. It only gets tougher when you make it to the league. Now, you might get more film, you might get more exposure, you might get drafted based on it. But if you're Terrell Foster and you're like, look, if I can't beat out C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson, what the hell?
Yeah, but usually the guys that transfer are not the guys that are going into the pros. We might see that certainly with the kid that went to Missouri who was looking for more playing time, and maybe Humphrey might make it too if he gets tougher. But usually the guys that leave are just looking for a chance to play. And you listen to Kirby's thing, he said after the third or fourth year, he likes the transfer portal because it opens up a guy a chance to maybe go play somewhere. And, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I'm with it. So anyway, I appreciate – I give Kirby Smart grief for not giving us enough players sometimes, but the fact that we got to speak to Kyron Jones and Peyton Woodring and Micah Morris, and I thought hearing from Terrell Foster was a very nice touch. I've always wondered about him. I mean, we got to speak to him like bowl practices and stuff like that, but it was kind of nice to have him speak. And I think he made UGA look good, especially when it was like, could have gone somewhere else. He's like, no, I want to be at Georgia. So a good look from the guys we got to speak to last night.
Hey, Coach, my 7-year-old likes jokes. We went to that basketball game together, and she was telling you some jokes. So she told me one last night that I wanted to share with you on the show. That's a 7-year-old, so understand the context of where it's coming from. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Owl says.
What? Say it again.
Owl says.
Owl says what? Who? Owl says who?
There you go. That's it.
Oh, good Lord.
She was so proud of it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Hey, if D-U-L-Y spells, ask her this one.
Okay.
If D-U-L-Y spells Julie, what does J-U-L-Y spell?
It spells July, but she's supposed to say Julie.
Right.
Yeah. I'll get with that. This is what's happening at Rocky Branch Elementary School right now. She's just walking around the hallways cracking jokes. Little Jim Donnan in the making.
Yeah. So don't tell her this one, but this is for Roddy. You know what you got if you got one green ball in this hand and one green ball in this hand?
No, sir.
Got the Jolly Green Giant right where you want it.
Okay.
So here's the other one. This guy goes to this circus, and there's a elephant there, and it says if you can make this elephant shake his head, we'll give you $100. So all these people keep going up to him, going back and forth, and no matter what happens, the elephant just goes up and down, up and down. And so finally this guy goes up to the elephant and says, "Do you know me?" And the elephant goes. And so the guy goes around behind the elephant, gets these 2 bricks, and takes these bricks and goes kapaya right in the guy's bad section there, right around his balls, just paya, and comes back to the front. And he says to the elephant, "Do you know me?" And the elephant goes, he said, "Do you want me to do that again?" And the elephant goes, "All right, boys."
Well, hey, it works.
Yeah.
Whatever gets the job done.
Right.
Speaking of job done, that is it for our show today. We are done talking. We will be back next week to talk. I guess we will be previewing G-Day.
Right.
Hopefully, we'll get to talk to Kirby on Tuesday. We'll pepper him with some more questions. We might have a few scrimmage notes from Saturday. We'll see. But we'll be previewing G-Day and talking about what we expect to see that coming Saturday. So until next week, we'll see you later.